Karsten's approach is one of the most interesting that I have seen in the forestry and forestry management space. But I'll leave him to tell you about it. Karsten, would you can I hand the mic over to you, please?
Sure. Thank you, Robert. Hello, and nice to meet you, and the opportunity to talk to you today. So my name is Karsten Brinkschuld. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Dryad Networks. My background is 25 years in telecoms network infrastructure. I've had 3 companies, 3 startups in that space doing infrastructure software. I spent 12 years in London running a public company there. The 3 companies have been exited. The last company I ran after moving back to Berlin was a spin-off from Fraunhofer Focus, where we did 4G network infrastructure software, which we did sell to Twilio, which is now running their IoT network infrastructure. But of course, this is not about my past; it's about the future. So maybe I should also do a very quick and dirty pitch about Dryad. So this is a new company. We were just started in 2020. We're a team of 7 co-founders, very much on technology, industry, sales, and science. We're focusing on, it's our tagline, connecting the natural world. That's the infrastructure, the telecom guy, but really the application that we're focusing on initially is the ultra early detection of wildfires. And we've chosen wildfires because there's such a huge impact potential in it. I was shocked when we started. Dryad was kicked off by the number that really drove me nuts, that wildfires are causing up to 20% of global CO2 emissions. That's a number very rarely known. Most people don't know. It's about the same amount the entire traffic, all cars, all aeroplanes, all ship combined put into the air. And we as humans are responsible for 80% of those fire ignitions, and it's killing about 3 billion animals each year and causing damages of $140 billion to the economy, and 10 billion of those is direct insurance payouts. So it's a big problem that needs to be solved. And we are, of course, not the only ones solving this. There are satellites on space from NASA and startups. There are cameras being placed in the forest to detect wildfires. And they're all good. They all make sense. Problem with all of them, it takes too long to detect the fire. By the time the fire brigade arrive at the scene, the fire is already too large, very often, to be extinguished at all. And then you end up with these mega fires that unfortunately we're seeing increasingly on the news. And this is where Dryad is really focused on. We want to catch fires in their infancy, when they're still in the smoldering phase, when there not even is an open fire. That's our focus, to give the fighting chance to the firefighters to extinguish it before it spreads out of control. And to do this, we've developed a complete solution ranging from sensors to communications infrastructure, including a cloud application monitoring and alerting platform. So we've developed these sensors. The hardware, the embedded software ourselves is our IP. These are solar-powered gas sensors, not particle sensors, but gas sensors for hydrogen, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, with embedded artificial intelligence that can reliably detect wildfires with a very high accuracy to avoid false positives. They're being placed in the forest and can detect the wildfires within 60 minutes. We're also creating a telecommunications infrastructure. I can't help it, I'm a telecoms guy. So we're building our own communications network in the forest because the mobile operators, Vodafone, etc., don't do it. So we're placing an IoT network into the forest for our sensors and third-party sensors. We have a lot of IP. We filed a few patents around, in particular, this mesh network infrastructure, because we need to cover very large areas and very large numbers of sensors in an area that's completely unconnected. And that's why we're doing this groundbreaking mesh network infrastructure with the gateways that I've just shown you. We also have border gateways with satellite and 4G uplink into our cloud-based platform. So it's a complete end-to-end solution. And the focus is, of course, on asset protection, preventing damages, reducing cost of firefighting, last but not least, saving lives, and dramatically reducing costs of fires, basically. But the potential is much broader than that. We're installing a generic IoT network infrastructure in the forest. So any compatible sensor, and there are hundreds from other companies that can work on our infrastructure, can be used for soil moisture, determining the size and growth of a tree, to detect chainsaws when somebody steals wood out of the forest. So there are multiple applications that you can slot in once the infrastructure is in place in an area that's completely unconnected right now. It's a $9 billion industry that has no connectivity effectively. So we're here to change that. We are focusing initially on private forestry because that's the lowest hurdle to entry. We're speaking to very large forestry companies like Weyerhaeuser with 7 million hectares of forest in the United States and a few others. And utility companies are important for us, like PG&E and NL. We're in discussions with because they cause wildfires. Of course, public and insurance companies are important to us. We're just starting. We're having our first sales this year. Next year, we're targeting 700,000 of revenue euro, and profitability we're aiming in 2024. We've had 1.8 million VC funding from 4 investors, including Stihl, the world's largest chainsaw manufacturer. For obvious reasons, they invested. We got 1.6 million euro from European Union as grants and loans. And we have 1.8 million additional funds committed from existing investors in our Series A that we're trying to raise right now, or aiming to raise, which is 8 to 10 million, to fund the go-to-market scaling and sales internationally. We're not just a financial company. Obviously, we are an impact company. So we've got SDG goals. Based on our business plan, we will save 1.4 million hectares from burning by 2030 with our sensors. And with that, we will prevent 600 million tons of CO2 emissions and save 85 million animals from perishing. To put that into context, Tesla on their webpage claims that they have saved 17 million tons of CO2 with their entire fleet so far. So we have obviously a bigger impact potential, we think. And that would be the overview of Dryad, and I hope that you join us on the journey to connect the natural world and prevent the world from fires.
Thank you, Karsten. That's very helpful. Really good, nice, tight presentation. Happy to open this up to questions, to observations. I will mention before that I do so. John Jacobson from AgDevco, which is a specialist investor in African agri and forestry businesses, sent his apologies, wanted to be on the call, but we'll be sending him the recording afterward, as did Jamie Cowan with the Forest Fund, based in the UK. They both can see some obvious benefits to their sphere of participation. I just couldn't make the call, but they've asked for me to send them the tape. Going forward, I don't know. I presume that you all on the call came on the call because there was something here that intrigued you, and I'd be interested in any comments, any observations, any inspirations that we can provide Karsten going forward. Anybody like to start?
Yeah, okay, I'll chip in if no one else is going.
Thanks, Richard.
Hi, Karsten. I was wondering your view on. I totally get the focus on private forestry. Whether you think you're going to see the first interest more from Europe or North America or even Latin America, because I guess Latin American forestry or industry in Brazil particularly is extremely advanced compared to some of the much slower growing. Physically slower growing trees in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yes, the initial application is wildfire detection. That's the easiest value proposition to sell. We focused on that, and we have more interest than we can handle at the moment that we can chew. So we're limiting ourselves to 10 installations this year, and they will be not just in Europe. We're working on 2 in the United States. 3 in Southern Europe, that is Greece and Spain and France, but then also Indonesia and Australia. And that's currently the opportunities that we are working on. These are pretty large companies, including Weyerhaeuser, which I mentioned earlier. They're also very interested in the health and growth monitoring, so as a generic data acquisition network in the forest, which are completely unconnected at this stage. So I'd say the low-hanging fruits are are really, of course, the wildfire detection use cases, and that means everywhere where you see wildfires in the news, we can sell because there is enormous damage being caused by these fires.
Really good, Raphael. I didn't know if this area of fire detection prevention is of interest to Equinor, but I thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah, I would say forestry has been very much on the edge of our strategy. It's something that our sustainability team is looking into as an important area to consider, but there has not been an explicit statement about how it relates to the strategy at the moment. I would consider it more like an explore category within Equinor Ventures. That would the interest from our SSU team would be important for us to give us some direction into where the space where we would be looking to invest.
Well, if you feel it's appropriate, I think one thing that Karsten has developed, given that he has he and I share a telecommunications background, but he has great expertise in this area, and if that could inform any of the strategic direction of the company going forward as global stewards, that can certainly be happy to make those introductions. Karsten, one of the things that you asked us to put on our website, which we did, was a call for trials for your technology. Is that something that you're still looking for, or is that, or have you closed off that activity?
No, it's still open. Of course, we set a deadline as we want to create urgency, but we are still open and of course adding more opportunities to the pipeline. We're getting close to the 10. Then of course we can change the ranking if we find something more exciting. We already have a few good ones, but we limit ourselves to 10, and then those we can't do this year, we're going to do next year.
Just on that, Karsten, sorry, Richard here again. Are you seeing is it the integrated forest companies are responding in the kind of zones you mentioned, or are you also talking to some of the large institutional owners? Because in North America, I guess there's a private forestry that the massive owners are the giant pension funds who own them through the TIMO organizations. There's timber management, and some of those, I think maybe even more so than the forest product companies are early movers on the sustainability aspects of what you're describing.
Yeah, what I haven't mentioned, because it was a really short pitch, is how our go-to-market strategy works. We do not intend to sell directly, but through a reseller and OEM network. So we really are focused on a products company. And yes, we'll do marketing and product development, but go-to-market on a global basis directly is going to be really challenging and very expensive. So our go-to-market strategies with reseller and OEM, we already have 4 resellers signed up despite our early stage that are offering the product in local countries. And we are currently starting OEM negotiations with our investor Stihl, which obviously is one of the largest companies that sells into the forestry industry and all aspects of it. So if we conclude with this deal, which we expect in about 6 months, then you would see these things being orange, labeled Stihl on it, and you can buy it everywhere where you can buy chainsaws, basically. And that would flood basically the market, in particular the forestry industry. So that's our strategy.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, I think there's also, but I think there's an opportunity for some top-down pressure, because actually some of there is quite concentrated ownership, and they do apply a lot of influence to the way those forests are managed, and awareness of those. So I mean, we can catch up afterwards. I know some people involved in that. I can.
Would love to use your network if you offer that. I'd definitely be very grateful for it. We're also having some really obvious discussions in California with CAL FIRE, for example, and PG&E, which went bankrupt because they caused one of the biggest wildfires ever with their power lines. So obviously they don't want that to happen again. So yes, there are so many opportunities we can go to. It's a bit mind-boggling, and I wish I had more than 14 hours a day.
I think that's awesome. I'd love to see this technology be ubiquitous in the forestry industry. I think there's there's quite a lot of demand. I was a bit shocked to see the emission statement that you made. That's a huge worry for all of us.
But if I may add to that, that's something which I still can't believe, even though after 1.5, 2 years into this, the issue even is worse than that. The 7.8 billion tons of CO2 emissions coming from wildfires do not appear in any carbon budget of any country because it's deemed to be carbon neutral, I learned, and which of course is kind of cynical because it's 20% of the problem. The theory here is that in the next 100 years or so, as the forest may regrow, if it does, these 100 million tons from a California wildfire would be reabsorbed in the next 100 years. Of course, we do not have 100 years to fix the climate crisis. So in the next 20 years, it's anything else but carbon neutral. It's a massive net contributor to climate change. Except nobody talks about it. That really, which is 20% of the issue is not being talked about from a climate change perspective. People are saying, yes, it's bad because of biodiversity loss and everything, but it's a net contributor, a massive net contributor that we can easily stop with technology.
There are also climate bonds that are depending on forestry management as well, and to see carbon credits going up in smoke, you would think that would get some financiers' attention. Yep. Going forward. So I think that's worth. I think that's a pressure point worth worth highlighting. Carsten, by all means. I didn't know if there are any other questions for Carsten from the floor. Are there? I appreciate we're all kind of coming to a close. Thank you for indulging me. I know that we're a little bit over time. I just want to say one thing, and I'll share a screen with you. Both Dryad and X-Fire are in this location. I always alphabetical search the ventures on the Greenbackers Investment Showcase. You can see their information. A little bit more detail than we've gone through here, but certainly you can get more detail on their programs, as well as direct contact information for both Dryad and X-Fire. And then the last thing for me to do really is to just remind you our session in the 9th of November in Glasgow. From the COP, Greenbackers Super Pitch, Carsten, Harm, Eric, and 24 other ventures will be presenting in a speed pitch type of format with some panel discussions. If you're in the neighborhood, I'd love to buy you a whiskey. The networking will be fantastic. We have a venue that can handle up to 300 delegates. If you can't make it, and I totally get that, and there is a carbon overhead in flying over to Glasgow, you can attend online and see a couple of hours of fantastic presentations. I hope you'll be able to join us. You'll get invitations to this shortly, and we'd certainly love to see you.